Our bodies have limited resources. Unhealthy habits build over years, and these bad habits take their toll on most of us. The tools to reverse such effects caused by these bad habits are very hard to come by, and sometimes almost impossible. But my work and life have shown me our immense power to rebuild and maintain our strength. My experience has taught me that medicine is many things. On the one hand, it is hard, ironclad science, learning that comes from books and laboratories and from exhaustive hours of study. Yet it is also resourcefulness and experimentation, making the best of what we have available. It's about empowerment. When we understand what's happening to our bodies and how to care for them, our whole mentality changes. In my mind, medicine should be about giving us the tools and the knowledge to look after ourselves long after we've left the doctor's office, and to face our bodies and our future without fear or shame.
More than ever, Americans and consumers around the world are trying to take control of many aspects of their lives, including their diet and physical activity. We're seeing this trend happen throughout the world, and people are more and more concerned about being healthier. Consumers appear to be taking serious ownership and, even more importantly, pride in their personal lifestyle choices aimed at improving their health. With greater access to information on personal wellness through brand communications and industry experts and bloggers and social media channels, consumers are increasingly taking a lot more interest and responsibility for their own health, choosing to be proactive and preventive instead of reactive. Historically, bone health, eye health, heart health, and other categories have been front and center, or well-known categories in our industry and of concern to consumers. All of these health categories clearly play a huge role in the success of the dietary supplement industry. For instance, the global bone and joint health ingredients market was valued at $2.3 billion in 2017 and is expected to reach over $3.5 billion by 2023 with a healthy growth rate. Experts from the World Health Organization are even predicting that by 2020, osteoarthritis will become the fourth most common cause of disability worldwide due to the aging population. So this portion of the market shows no signs of slowing down. The common thread across all of these health concerns is that consumers are being driven more and more towards prevention of these health issues and disease states versus waiting for a problem to occur. Prevention is of high interest to consumers these days. Amongst these existing health concerns is a new health category that is rapidly emerging called muscle health. Just as everyone has eyes, a heart, and bones that make up their physical body, everyone has muscles, and muscles alone comprise a significant portion of our total body mass, about 40% in total. There are over 600 muscles in the human body, and these muscles are all responsible for movement and support of daily living activities. Muscle is critical for our overall health and well-being. So it's no surprise that muscle health is quickly being elevated to the same ranks as bone, heart, and eye health. For the majority of consumers, the very definition of health and wellness is having the energy to live an active life. All the statistics and all the data show that the consumer market is growing and needs more education in this area of health and wellness as consumers age. It's very exciting in this industry that we're all working towards the same goal, to improve health and quality of life for all consumers worldwide. And it's equally exciting to know that muscle health is going to be one of the next big segments on the horizon that's going to grow and make people live healthier lives.
Through education and awareness creation, we want to encourage consumers to focus on muscle health early in life. When thinking about muscle health, consider myHMB. We truly believe myHMB is the most important ingredient in this emerging and relevant health category. Muscle health for the general consumer is really one of the last frontiers in terms of major functional health categories. And this offers the dietary supplement industry a tremendous opportunity for growth in a new and virtually untapped market. There are two major musculoskeletal health categories that are closely related to muscle health. Those are joint health and bone health. Both are mature, multi-billion-dollar health categories, yet very few people and companies in the supplement industry are focused on perhaps the most important musculoskeletal health category of all. That is muscle health. myHMB is a good reason to start this muscle health discussion.
The muscular system is responsible for the movement of the body. 40% of our body weight is muscle mass. We have 3 different types of muscle: cardiac muscle, our heart muscle, smooth muscle, and skeletal muscle. Most skeletal muscle is connected to 2 bones through tendons, but some actually are connected to the skin that allow us to smile, for example. If the muscle shortens, it pulls on the tendons and pulls the bones closer together, and that's how we generate movement. Muscles are involved in a lot of different health aspects within the human body. The total amount of muscle mass we have is always in a flux. On the one hand, we're making muscle, on the other hand, we're breaking down muscle. If the rate of muscle protein synthesis exceeds the rate of muscle protein breakdown, we're gaining muscle mass. However, there are certain incidents where the rate of muscle protein breakdown is increased, and as a consequence, we're losing strength, we're losing mobility, there's an increased risk of injury and illness, and we're also gaining fat mass.
After water, proteins are one of the largest components in the body. They're also sometimes called the building blocks of life. Proteins are made up of many smaller units called amino acids. Some amino acids are called essential because they cannot be produced by the human body. Instead, they must be acquired through our diet. Our bodies can't store individual amino acids, thus making it necessary as a daily consumption of amino acids via proteins. To improve physical muscle function and strength, adequate protein intake is needed to maintain healthy body function. Our proteins are constantly being metabolized to replace what is damaged through normal function, such as external stressors, training, activity, and illness.
So during the course of the day, muscle is regulated through muscle protein synthesis and muscle protein breakdown. In the morning, after an overnight fast, when you wake up, the rate of muscle protein breakdown actually exceeds the rate of muscle protein synthesis. And so there's a net loss of muscle protein in the morning until you eat breakfast. When we eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or any meal for that matter, muscle protein synthesis is stimulated. Insulin is also important, but it is much more important to inhibit muscle protein breakdown. And muscle protein breakdown is inhibited by insulin very potently, and it doesn't take much of a rise in insulin to almost completely suppress muscle protein breakdown. So the main determinant of the increase in muscle protein synthesis and the net gain of muscle protein after a meal is actually protein in the meal. However, that doesn't mean that eating more protein is necessarily better, because the dose-response relationship between protein intake and muscle protein synthesis is curvilinear and reaches a plateau. And this plateau, above which it can't be further stimulated, is about at the range of 20 to 30 grams of amino acids, or the equivalent of essential amino acids, because it's predominantly, at least acutely, the essential amino acids that stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So an equivalent of about 20 to 30 grams of protein will maximally stimulate protein synthesis. Exercise is another potent stimulator of muscle protein synthesis. We all appreciate that, and in fact you can actually induce muscle hypertrophy, as we know from people who go to the gym a lot, the heavy weight lifters, by performing a lot of exercise. Most people don't do it to the extent necessary to induce muscle hypertrophy.
During muscle loss, protein breaks down faster than it can be synthesized. A common misconception is that increased protein alone can remedy this issue. Unfortunately, this can be problematic. Consumption of a well-balanced diet with sufficient protein is important, but simply supplementing the diet with large amounts of protein cannot correct this imbalance, nor is it practical. This is especially problematic for the aging population, which have anabolic resistance to dietary protein. They have an impairment in the ability to stimulate muscle protein synthesis in response to protein intake. This reduces their muscle health benefits of protein in the elderly. As a supplement for muscle health, it is not the only nor the best solution for optimal muscle health.
I think probably the biggest misconception in terms of muscle health is that the more protein we eat, the better off we are. And this is probably because as I've mentioned before, there is this upper limit to which the body can use the dietary protein to build muscle. So this is not to be misunderstood that protein isn't important. Protein is absolutely important, and it is actually essential. Too little protein and we all lose muscle mass. That's very clear as well. But more is not necessarily better, and we have to keep it within the safe range, because there is definitely potential concern for adverse metabolic health outcomes by overconsuming protein, such as the overconsumption of protein has recently been linked with the risk of type 2 diabetes. So that comes back to the 20 to 30 grams per meal. So the recommended daily intake for protein is about 0.8 grams per kilogram body weight per day. It has been argued and is recommended to increase that to avoid the age-associated loss of muscle mass to about 1 to 1.2 grams per kg per day. This is within a fairly narrow range, and I think this is quite appropriate. Eating a whole lot more doesn't help, because when you translate this comes out into a total amount of protein per day. It comes to about 60 grams, 70 grams per day. And the importance here is actually the timing of the protein intake, because acutely studies have shown that there's this dose-response relationship between protein intake and the maximum amount of protein that a muscle can, that these amino acids from the dietary protein can be incorporated into muscle protein. How much of that dietary protein can be used to build and renew or grow muscle. And this has been done in several studies, so this is a fairly robust number. This comes to about 20 to 30 grams of protein in a meal. So it is important to not eat a large protein-rich dinner and very little protein in the morning, because we lose the ability, we cannot fully maximize the total daily intake of protein if we don't spread it out throughout the day. So this is an important aspect to consider. The main reasons for the plateauing, for the maximum stimulatory effect, that we really don't know. You couldn't eat 100 grams of protein for breakfast and say I'm just as good as if I ate 30 grams for breakfast, 30 grams for lunch, and 30 grams for dinner, because anything above the 30 grams would actually be oxidized and used as a fuel, if you think about it. The other thing too is that some of the amino acids are potentially lipogenic, which means that they can be turned into fat. So eating protein in excess of needs, or in excess of what can be used to synthesize muscle protein or protein in the body per se, could be used to be turned into fat, and that would be undesirable.
Fortunately, there's a simpler, more efficient way to deliver exactly what the body needs. It's beta-hydroxy beta-methylbutyrate, or HMB. It's naturally occurring in our body and occurs from this essential amino acid leucine. Dairy protein we consume contains the amino acid leucine. However, only about 5 to 10% of the dietary leucine is converted to HMB in the body. Additionally, there's trace amounts of HMB that can be found in our daily diets. Some sources include meat, fruits, and vegetables. In order to really benefit from HMB, supplementation is needed. We cannot eat enough protein nor consume enough HMB through our diet.
Research in the mid-70s and the late 80s showed that leucine, which is an essential amino acid, has very unique positive effects on protein metabolism. This led few investigators around the world to explore the reasons for this beneficial effect. It was right around that time that Dr. Steve Nissen and I were working in different institutions and were very much interested in understanding the effect of leucine on protein metabolism. We were competitors at the time, but then we became solid friends and we decided to collaborate. Our collaboration led us to discover HMB, which is an abbreviation for beta-hydroxy beta-methylbutyrate. HMB is a downstream metabolite of leucine. Our studies showed that HMB was responsible for most of the beneficial effects of leucine. We also found that nearly 5% of the leucine in the human body is converted to HMB. So the next step, which actually took us around 7 years to accomplish, was to carry out toxicity studies in animals and safety studies in humans. We then determined that the ideal amount of HMB needed by adult humans per day to keep our muscles healthy and strong is about 1.5 to 3 grams per day. This means that we need to take approximately 30 to 60 grams of leucine to get the same effects of HMB in humans.
HMB increases muscle protein synthesis through the mTOR P70 pathway, which stimulates translation initiation of protein synthesis. HMB also simultaneously decreases muscle protein breakdown by decreasing the key regulating components of the ubiquitin proteasome pathway. In addition, it helps normalize the autophagy pathway. HMB has been shown to exert a protective effect against muscle atrophy by normalizing the AKT FOXO axis that controls autophagy. HMB has also been shown to increase AMPK, SIRT1, SIRT3, and collectively causing an improvement of mitochondrial biogenesis. While many of these effects are shared with leucine, HMB is far more potent than leucine in promoting lean mass gains because of the additional effect it has on decreasing protein breakdown.
HMB was first officially introduced to the consumer market in 1995. Today, HMB is a staple in many sports and medical nutritional products used by nearly 60 million people worldwide. In the 20+ years since we launched HMB, many additional studies on men and women of all ages and of all health stages were carried out by a large group of investigators around the world, and they confirmed our findings. Throughout my academic career, spanning nearly 3.5 decades thus far as a surgeon and as a scientist, my work has generated several patents, but based on the immeasurable value and vast benefit for people of all stages of life, I feel the most important product of my work relates to the discovery of beta-hydroxy, beta-methyl butyrate, or HMB.
For years, TSI has been the leading producer of HMB globally. HMB is one of the most studied nutritional ingredients available. In the last 2 decades, about 50 human studies, 40 review articles, and 4 meta-analyses have shown its effectiveness and safety. For the past 2 decades, our HMB has been known primarily to sport nutrition consumers, simply as HMB. However, extensive research has proven the muscle health benefits to all consumers. We wanted to create and introduce a more inclusive brand, and that is myHMB. We truly feel that this myHMB brand speaks to sports and non-sports consumers alike, and will help create a platform for higher-level discussions on muscle health itself. Muscle health care should be a top concern for all consumers, regardless of age or activity level. But the education simply isn't there at the moment. With myHMB, we plan to change that.
It's a fact that every one of us at some point in our life will lose muscle mass. So that makes all of us prospective myHMB customers. Traditionally, the sports nutrition segment represented what the muscle health market is. There has always been and continues to be a tremendous amount of myHMB potential in the sports nutrition market. This market has seen robust growth over the past 10 years.
So sports nutrition is a really interesting category, and it's combined with weight management, and MBJ puts the combined category of sports nutrition and weight management at close to $80 billion. This includes all kinds of energy drinks and sports drinks and beverages and weight loss pills and meal supplements and things like that for sports performance. The category is growing about 4.5% a year overall. But inside that category, there's some sectors that are growing at close to 10%. And that includes the active nutrition sales, which are active nutrition products are products that are moving to the mass market. The key drivers behind this growth are increased focus on active lifestyles, evolution of new products going to consumers in the mass market, and expansion of distribution channels across the board. This shift has caused a really big growth in this sports nutrition category.
However, we're not seeing sports nutrition growth that's tied to the traditional sports nutrition consumer buying more products. The market growth is tied to a massive migration of new consumers entering the sports nutrition space, demanding sports nutrition products for a variety of health solutions. This is all new. In fact, typical sports nutrition consumer, we call the performance-driven athlete, represents only about 5% of today's sports nutrition market. That means 95% of the sports nutrition market is comprised of non-traditional performance athletes looking for healthy and active lifestyle. TSI has recategorized sports nutrition into an expanded group of consumer demographics. These demographics are more focused on healthy and active lifestyles than your traditional sports. I'd like to talk to you about these 4 consumer segments and how they benefit from myHMB in muscle health. These consumer demographics are as follows: performance-driven consumers, actively tuned-in consumers, driven to lose consumers, and gracefully aging consumers.
Athletes are typically young, motivated, and they're trying to look for a competitive edge. They're trying to maximize the benefits they're getting out of their exercise. They are different athletes with different nutritional goals. From comparing a bodybuilder to a golf player, they're trying to achieve different things through nutrition.
These are the traditional early adopters of HMB for muscle health. They are elite sports performers such as bodybuilders or CrossFit athletes or even football athletes. They all strive to maximize their time and effort in their training. They want to achieve personal goals in every workout through excessive training and dedication to athletic performance.
Even if they're different athletes and they have different nutritional goals, there's one reason why they actually take nutritional supplements, and that reason is they're trying to improve performance. There are ingredients called ergogenic aids that directly improve athletic performance. but there are also nutritional strategies that help in the long run to improve performance. They help athletes to actually recover faster, and if they recover faster and they have less damage to their muscles, they can train more often and harder, and therefore they see faster training adaptations. I have different sets of ingredients that I can use for different applications. An ergogenic aid can be something as simple as water. If the body loses 3% of weight through sweating, there's a decline in performance, and if I'm drinking, I can prevent that decline. So hydration is one of the nutritional goals, and I can achieve that through water or electrolytes. There's the mental aspect. I'm trying to use phosphatidylserine, for example, or caffeine to improve mental performance. If we're looking at lean body mass, strength and power, I have creatine, protein, phosphatidic acid. If I'm looking at immune health, I have beta-glucan and probiotics as ingredients. So depending on what the athlete is looking for, I have a very nice set of different ingredients they can use for different purposes. We're then looking at HMB. We know the mechanism of action of HMB. We know what HMB can and cannot do. So we're looking at the different applications. HMB fits perfectly into lean body mass, strength and power, recovery, as well as endurance.
Through Team myHMB, we've communicated with hundreds and hundreds of performance-driven athletes who use myHMB, and the feedback from them confirms they are very tuned in, personally, to the benefits of myHMB provides. myHMB's benefits in preventing muscle loss and reducing muscle damage during intensive training allows these athletes to feel myHMB benefits of reduced soreness, more energy during their workout, and specifically improved recovery prior to the next workout. For the hardcore athlete, this means they can train harder, experience less fatigue, recover faster from training, and the clinical studies confirm essentially what Team myHMB athletes are telling us. Studies show supplementing with myHMB significantly increases strength, power, and endurance, and this provides athletes of all kinds the competitive edge they work so hard to achieve every day.
I'm Erin Stern, two-time Miss Figure Olympia champion, former Division I track and field junior All-American, and lifetime natural athlete. I first started supplementing with HMB way back in college. It was in a supplement that I would take before my toughest training sessions. And I noticed that in those training sessions that I was able to sprint just a little bit faster. My recovery time improved just a little bit, and then I also noticed that I was less sore after these tough training sessions, which meant that I could go back and I could hit it harder in my next session. Fast forward a few years, I was still doing track and field, and I was trying to qualify for the Olympic trials in high jump, and I missed it by 3 centimeters. So I needed structure in my life, and I needed something else to train for. And I ended up getting into figure competitions. And I started taking HMB again because, as you may or may not know, the figure competitions and training is absolutely grueling for a lifetime natural athlete because we need to gain muscle, we need to maintain muscle when we're dieting down, and we need to recover so we can hit those same muscle groups sooner. So I would take HMB both for help in the gym. It would help me get a couple extra reps and get a better volume, quality volume in the gym. And then it would also help me be less sore. So I was able to train those same muscles more frequently, which over time, that quality volume definitely adds up. And I owe a lot of that progress to HMB because it has helped me train harder and has helped me stay in the gym and definitely helped me maintain my lean mass because we've gone through stages of prepping, and I would do 6 shows a year. So I would have to really maintain my muscle in a caloric deficit and also be able to perform in a caloric deficit. So, and I've been able to do that and been able to stand on the world stage a number of times and win, the world champion title a couple of times. I owe a lot of my career success to this supplement, in addition to hard work. But as a natural athlete, again, we're always looking for something that is going to help us be competitive in the field of bodybuilding. So I do rely on it, and I do take it before every one of my workouts.
These consumers are primarily women who are on the go and in the know. They have highly regimented workouts. Their diets include healthy foods that are non-GMO, gluten-free, organic. They supplement with high-quality supplements such as omega-3s, probiotics, and proteins. These consumers want to maintain a toned look and a healthy body composition through their commitment to exercise and diet. These consumers should not be confused with dieters looking for rapid weight loss or a quick weight loss solution. On the contrary, they have long-term focus on muscle health and appearance. They want to feel and appear fit versus wanting to simply lose weight and look skinny.
The irony of this modern take on health and wellness is that collectively we are not exercising or dieting more, and we're not losing more weight. The statistics on obesity rates is that the number of us are far too sedentary and are still shockingly overweight. However, dieting for the sake of dieting or exercising for the sake of simply losing weight are not necessarily the end goal for the majority of us any longer. Those who are embracing this new outlook on health and wellness are making serious lifestyle changes aimed at improving how we look and feel today, but with the ultimate goal of staying healthier, more active, and capable longer in life.
HMB helps active lifestyle consumers to achieve that goal. If they're working out, HMB helps them to reduce muscle soreness and pain, and it actually helps them to make more muscle mass and prevent muscle protein breakdown. So supplementing with HMB allows active lifestyle consumers to achieve their goal of body shaping easier.
These consumers need to add myHMB supplementation to their daily diet to ensure they receive lean muscle mass retention benefits that their diet, and in particular protein alone, does not provide. These consumers are both men and women who are typically unaware of the muscle loss that's triggered from altering their diet to lose weight. When these consumers cut calories, they lose weight. But more importantly, their weight loss is comprised of both fat loss and muscle loss. Weight loss for this consumer typically is a necessity for their health. And weight loss can be a key to the prevention of a chronic disease for them, like diabetes. These consumers typically lose weight by reducing caloric intake through diets such as intermittent fasting, or they alter their diet by cutting carbs and replacing carbs with proteins and fats, like the Atkins diet or ketogenic diets.
I think obesity, and we often hear about sarcopenic obesity and body weight per se. So muscle mass is important, and it's a major contributor to body weight as well. However, one cannot judge the amount of muscle one has, especially as we get older, by total body weight, because what happens in the process of sarcopenia, the age-associated loss of muscle mass, is that in the body, muscle is actually replaced by fat. So when we lose muscle, it's called a silent loss, just like other silent killers or silent diseases, because we don't really notice it. We lose muscle, but we don't lose weight, and that is because muscle is being replaced by fat. And so really, aside from sophisticated body imaging techniques, we can't really determine as a lay person how much muscle we have, and this is really shown more in our functional ability, functional capacity. So we can have a healthy weight, but that may not contain enough muscle for us to be considered healthy. The other thing is that excess body fat, of course, interferes with muscle function per se, because there is fat infiltration inside the muscle as well, which interferes with the ability of the muscle to function properly.
Consumers undergoing caloric restriction will see an improvement with HMB as well. They will see an attenuation of muscle loss, an increase in fat loss, and attenuation of strength losses. This means that a more sustainable, healthy body composition is achieved with compared to caloric restriction alone.
These consumers will benefit significantly by adding myHMB to their diet and exercise program for the muscle loss prevention benefits myHMB offers. Muscle is the most metabolic organ in the body, so preserving muscle mass is essential for healthy metabolism and proper metabolic function. And this improves body composition and long-term weight management sustainability for the consumer.
Thanks to advances in medicine and technology, we are now living longer than any generation before us, with an average US life expectancy having risen by more than 8 years since 1970. All of this has sort of led to a funny kind of irony. As our life expectancy soars, there are more and more seniors around, and as we outlive the old killers of disease and cancer, we're asking much more of our body's core components, like our muscles, to stick around a lot longer. But many of our current healthcare programs and lifestyle demands were designed with the expectation that we'd only live to be around 70. We're asking our muscles to achieve the impossible, to stay strong, active, and pain-free.
So ultimately, there's a critical shift in the consumer's perspective. There's a shift from anti-aging to healthy aging and healthy lifespan. People don't want to just live longer, they want to live more healthy and fulfilled lives. They are willing to invest time and financial resources into activities, gym or tennis club memberships, and other things like that, as well as their nutritional support program in order to feel healthier as they age. The goal of aging consumers is typically to maintain and improve energy, mobility, and independence as they age. They want to feel youthful, stay active, and avoid injury. Interestingly, but not surprisingly, the key driver of overall growth in the dietary supplement market is the aging population. By 2050, the world's population over 60 years of age will almost double from 12% to 22%. Another more interesting statistic is there are 10,000 people every day that turn 65 in the US. These consumers are realizing their age and are proactively seeking solutions to live healthier in order to maintain and improve their quality of life. This group is not only looking to their physicians for medical advice or prescribed solutions. Like the active nutrition group, this group of aging consumers is also seeking self-care so that they can solve their own problems and improve their own health. This trend among aging consumers has attracted growing interest among companies looking to address key category needs and provide safe, effective, and fast-acting supplements to fulfill these consumer needs. One phrase that's been circulated around the industry is that health is the new wealth, and this seems to make a lot of sense.
Aging, as we all know, causes a loss of muscle mass, and this process starts at about mid-age, somewhere between the ages of 40 and 50, much sooner than most of us anticipate actually. And muscle is lost at about 0.5% to 1% per year. This doesn't seem much, but however, when you think about that it starts in midlife, we can easily lose 10 to 20% of our muscle mass as we get into older age. The loss of muscle strength accompanies the loss of muscle mass, but is actually more pronounced than the loss of muscle mass, and the rate of decline is about double, about 1 to 2% loss per year. And again, this is not significant on a year-per-year basis, but thinking that this process goes on over about 2 to 3 decades in our lives, there's a significant loss of muscle function as we age, and we have about 25 to 30% less in old age compared to our peak performance in middle age. And this translates into changes in the ability to conduct physical activities as well. Think of it as climbing stairs gets much harder as you get older, lifting up bookstore shelves, lifting groceries into the trunk of a car. These are all things that are affected by muscle health. So it is important to maintain muscle health and function throughout life.
If you are in this age group, like me, you're probably starting to notice physical changes triggered by age-related muscle loss, such as lack of mobility and flexibility, lack of energy, muscle pain and muscle soreness. Muscle health is important for this consumer group. Most of us accept the symptoms we feel from muscle loss on us just growing older. Most people don't know enough about age-related muscle loss to consider it a serious health issue, to proactively seek effective nutritional solutions. Many of us see our parents suffering from the loss of muscle. Like when I put my hand on my mother's shoulder, I feel more bone and less muscle compared to 10 years ago. That's because she's lost between 15 and 20% of her muscle mass over the past decade. Muscle loss can impair mobility and balance. It can increase your risk of falls and fractures. The less physically active you become as you age, the greater the muscle loss accelerates. This is a vicious cycle, potentially irreversible cycle if left unchecked. Prevention is the key. It's never too early to supplement with myHMB.
Age-associated loss of muscle mass affects everyone, even those who have built up their muscle to the extreme. However, they have more to begin with and are less affected by it as they age because they have absolutely more muscle mass than a person who doesn't exercise. The reasons for age-associated muscle loss is actually called anabolic resistance, as far as we understand. And this is that our muscle responds less to the anabolic stimulus of protein ingestion, insulin, and exercise. So for any amount of food protein that is being eaten, the muscle produces less protein when you're older compared to when you're younger. And again, this process, as we said, starts in about mid-age. So this makes it difficult to prevent this process because we can't simply overcome by exercising more or by eating more protein, because despite the fact that we eat a lot, the body reaches a plateau above which muscle protein can be built. And the same thing goes for strength. However, there are nutritional strategies that have been discovered that help overcome this anabolic resistance. One of it is the combination of exercise and protein intake, because you get a stimulatory effect that's greater when you combine both protein intake and exercise. And so although both reach an upper limit, together they're better than exercise in addition to nutrition is better than nothing. And then there are several nutritional supplements that have been found to be helpful as well. A prominent one is HMB, for instance. It's a leucine metabolite that increases muscle strength and muscle mass.
To minimize muscle loss in an elderly, there are three major ingredients that we should use: protein, creatine, and HMB. The problem with the aging individual is that when I'm young, I'm supplementing 20 grams of protein, I get a significant increase in muscle protein synthesis. The older I get, the shorter is the time actually I see an increase in muscle protein synthesis, and I also need more protein. When I use roughly 20 grams in a young individual, I need up to 40 grams in an old individual. So at a certain point of time, supplementation with protein becomes more difficult just because of the amount of protein I will have to give to an old individual. But protein, creatine, and HMB are the three leading ingredients in maintaining muscle mass in an elderly population.
We tend to think of muscle health as only important for athletes, but the reality is that so much of our basic safety, think falls, for example, and of our metabolism rests with having a healthy muscle mass. So how can we expect to have full and active lives in our later decades without functioning muscles? We spend time thinking about bone loss and its implication due to the high mortality associated with broken bones, but the reality is that muscles and bones work together to help us function in later life. Given these building blocks, I believe it's time to pay more attention to preventing the problem rather than just treating it after the fact, or worse, lamenting its loss once it's gone. It's time to explore different, sometimes unexpected ways of keeping our bodies fit and healthy well into our 70s, 80s, and beyond. I strongly believe that with the right habits and routines, we can stack the odds in our favor and age with grace, mobility, and joy. I've met many people in their 80s who still have extremely fit bodies and minds. Aging healthily is achieved. HMB is most synonymous with human performance and athletic training, but it's also a critical ingredient of medical nutrition applications and has been used to aid patients for nearly 30 years. Medical nutrition can support those suffering from various illnesses and diseases, states, from injury or from surgery. In any of these scenarios, the body's overall health as well as muscle health is compromised due to the disease process itself and due to the unavoidable periods of immobility. For instance, when a healthy athlete injures her or his ACL and requires surgery, they spend quite a bit of time in a period of immobilization after the surgery. So the combination of surgery and immobilization lead to serious muscle atrophy, which we call muscle disuse atrophy. Now imagine when an elderly adult falls. The impact of the surgery and the more extensive period of immobilization that is required will lead to more serious muscle atrophy and will worsen the recovery. Literally, a wasting of the muscle mass. During muscle disuse atrophy, several key things happen to the body. First, there's a loss of skeletal muscle, which amongst many other things leads to declines in metabolic health and in functional capacity. This loss of strength and of muscle mass becomes apparent even in the first 7 to 10 days following a surgical operation. The extent of muscle loss during injury strongly influences the level and duration of the rehabilitation or recovery period, and in the elderly can lead to deterioration in health. To encourage a more efficient and full recovery during times of immobilization, a person needs to rely almost entirely on his or her nutritional regimen. Studies have shown that HMB provides measurable benefits when patients take HMB in the post-surgery period or in the post-injury period. For instance, studies have shown that HMB prevents muscle loss during disuse for healthy older women and men who are on bed rest for a period of 10 days. HMB and vitamin D have also been shown to increase strength in a group of patients who, by the way, were elderly women with a mean age of 82 years who took HMB following hip surgery. HMB was also shown to help in the recovery of cancer and trauma patients.
Hi, I'm Carissa Johnson, and I've always been into fitness. I started off playing soccer in high school, and in college that became more of like a cardio/core obsession. Later on, a running injury brought me to the gym, and I've been obsessed with weightlifting and fitness ever since. It was 2016, April 16th. I competed in the Fitness Atlantic for WBFF. I actually won my pro card, and it was one of the happiest days of my life. So I was doing this promotional modeling job and handing out materials to people who were headed to a doctor's conference. It was May 16th, 2011. It was a beautiful morning, and I had looked down to grab one of my pamphlets, and I was kind of talking to my friend over here, and I heard metal crashing. So I look up, and here's an SUV headed directly for me, full speed. Took my breath away. The next thing I know, I was hit by that SUV, and he had actually crushed my legs, and he was stopped by me and a metal fence that was protecting the parking lot. So I was crushed, and he wasn't moving. I was pinned, and I was losing my mind. I was still conscious. I was yelling for help. I didn't know how I was gonna get out of there. So I bend over the fence, and I'm trying to pull myself out. I'm like, I'm gonna rip off my legs. I'm going to. This is the only way I'm gonna survive this. So thankfully at that moment, I think I blacked out, and it's such a miraculous thing. A doctor who was attending the convention actually missed getting hit and saw all this happen. He was a trauma doctor. And so he got the vehicle to back off my legs, and he caught me, set me down on the ground, checked me, see if there's anything he could do at that time. I only stayed in the hospital for a couple days, but it was pretty invasive surgery. They had to flush me out. They put rods and pins in both legs to hold me together, and then I had to have a blood transfusion at the time as well because I lost so much blood. When I went home, I actually had to go back, with my parents because I couldn't take care of myself, and I was bedridden, couch-ridden, literally I couldn't do anything. for 2 months. It took 6 months for my bones to fuse. During this whole time, I took HMB, and it was amazing because I lost, muscle from not being able to walk, but I was able to sustain muscle as well from it all. It's such an amazing supplement. It's one of the only ones I've ever believed in and taken consistently. I also lifted weights off the side of the couch to try to maintain arms, and I tried to maintain my core during that time, and it helped me sustain that muscle as well. I didn't lose everything, during this time, which was amazing. I kept on fighting. I took HMB, kept day by day. My training, it was painful, but I fought through, kept on going. I wasn't willing to give up. I never did take my health for granted, but golly, you never imagine that something like that is going to happen to you, and it did.
It's important consumers have a satisfying experience when consuming products that contain myHMB. The product must be in a format that meets the needs and the expectations of the end consumer for each demographic. It must be palatable with a satisfying mouthfeel, smell, and taste. Fortunately, TSI formulators have done the heavy lifting through the development of a new line of prototype formulations that are developed with brand partners in mind. It's our goal to reduce the development time and expedite the development process so products can go to market more quickly with myHMB. TSI offers myHMB ingredients to our brand customers in powder and liquid forms. Both ingredients are very stable and they're easy to mix with other ingredients. Our powdered myHMB ingredient is currently on the supplement market in tablet and capsule forms. However, we're extending our offering through the launch of these new prototypes in drink mixes, sachets, and protein bars. Our liquid ingredient, marketed under the brand name myHMB Clear, this ingredient is a clear, transparent, free-flowing liquid that is currently on the market in the form of liquid caps. However, we're extending our offering through the launch of new soft gel formulations, along with prototype ready-to-drink clear beverages and gel packs. I would like to add HMB to Red Bull because I drink Red Bull every morning on my way to work, and having 3 grams of HMB in Red Bull would be the perfect solution for me. Taking a convenient daily dose of myHMB, regardless of your diet and your protein intake, ensures you receive the sufficient amounts of HMB to prevent age-related muscle loss. The bottom line is when it comes to preventing muscle loss and maintaining optimal muscle health, nothing compares to myHMB.
HMB has been there the whole way. I believe so strongly in it. I was such a weakling before, and it helped me not only come from that to, a fitness pro, but also come back from an accident where I lost so much muscle. I'm beyond words reflecting on how this journey has been with HMB and with my accident.
Truthfully, our health is up to us. We need to find that ideal balance between scientific medicine and more everyday self-motivated forms of healthcare, such as our activity, our diet, and work-life balance. It's about taking care of our bodies in ways that become normal habits, building a lifestyle that cares for our muscles rather than taking them for granted.
Okay, what are the 5 senses? Smell, taste, sight, what else? Touch, hearing. Okay, good.
If I got to choose,
Wow.
I would rather not live with sarcopenia, having honestly seen its effect around 2.5, 3 years ago. This is very difficult. I don't mind losing my hearing.
Well, I'd rather lose one of my senses. With sarcopenia, you lose your muscle strength and you lose muscle function. It's something important that I want to have when I grow older, be able to be mobile and be able to get out there and do some activities that I enjoy doing.
I don't know if there's a right and the wrong answer. If I got to choose, I would probably live with sarcopenia. Part of it is it's preventable, it's treatable, it's in my hands to some degree to do that, because I could go out, I could be more active, I could have better nutrition. Losing some of the senses is actually fatal, because if you lose taste, for instance, people stop eating and waste away. I'll have loss of taste-induced sarcopenia rather than age-associated sarcopenia.
To be honest, I think I will keep my 5 senses. Sorry.
When I think about sarcopenia and having sarcopenia, I would be unable to move around, I would be in pain, I would be unable to be mobile as I get older. And for me, mobility is where it's at. So I could lose a little smell to become mobile in the future. And so sarcopenia for me is about mobility, and I don't want sarcopenia. I want to be mobile over smelling.
I guess I'd like to lose my sense of, I would not want to live with sarcopenia. So maybe my sense of touch?